All right, welcome to another episode of Tactical Tuesday. Last week, we hit on 4-bet pots, blind versus blind, and today we're going to dive into some 4-bet pots from early position. So a little bit of dynamic change from a loose formation to a tighter formation. And as always, I'm joined on Tactical Tuesday by my co-host, Mr. John Chai. How you doing, sir?
I'm pretty good. Pretty excited for 4-bet pots. They're always exciting. They're always big.
Yeah, that's the nature of the 4-bet pots. The only way to get bigger is to look at 5-bet pots, right? That's
next week.
It'd be very short Tactical Tuesday. So I had ace king and I faced a 4-bet, so I jammed. All right, good show, everybody. Hope you enjoyed, and see you next week. So without any further ado, let's kind of dive into this first hand, where sitting here looks like you have what is a good hand. You've got the green ace king, so ace king of clubs. You open to 2.5x, the cutoff folds, the button folds, small blind folds. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say that the big blind is probably going to 3-bet.
Good guess.
And they 3-bet to 6 big blinds from 2.5, which means stuff.
Yeah, so I actually just looked at the HUD sets that I had available on this player before recording this episode, and this was his 4th hand. He was 0-0-0, so it looks like he had at least called once to get to like $1,100, or maybe he sat down with that amount or something like that. But he hasn't played any hands, so don't really have much of a read as to whether he is a fish or a reg. But then once he uses this 3-bet sizing from out of position, I think we can pretty confidently say that this player is much more likely to be on the weaker end of the spectrum. Would expect a much larger 3-bet from, most of the strong regs that I play against. So I think we can read into this size quite a bit.
Yep, I agree completely. And yeah, 6 big blinds from out of position. Generally, what's expected is going to be 11 to 12 big blinds. So yeah, very small 3-bet. And don't really know what to make of it as far as like ranging goes, but profiling, I would say villain is likely a fish. Ranging just could be across the board. It could be aces. I've seen crazier things, so open to anything. I think in general, the smaller 3-bet size is a little bit weaker, but again, it could just be this is their 3-bet size and they don't want you to fold with their premium hands, and so they use this as well. But you yourself have a premium hand, and a hand that is definitely worthy of placing another bet. And if I were to be a betting man, I would say that you're going to 4-bet to something in between one. How narrow do I want to make the range? Like I want to say like 180 to 210, but I feel like that's too wide. So I'm just going to say 200 exactly. That'll be my try to go on the nose, but 180 and 210, maybe 220. Let's see. 180, the bottom end. Bottom end. I think you missed a couple big blinds in value there.
I was worried he had aces, so when I want the 4-bet fold, I want to make sure that I save those two big blinds.
So you make it 180. You started the hand with 100 big blinds, so you raised to 18 big blinds, and they call, which is good for you. I think facing a 5-bet, probably not so good for you, but when they flat, now it's pretty good. Again, don't really know what their range is going to be here. Could be ace king off, could be ace queen off, something like 9s plus, king queen suited broadways, those types of hands. That would be my general kind of thought here. But again, I'm kind of open for anything. They could have ace deuce off. Like just seen crazier things. So they call, and let's hope they don't have the ace deuce off, because the flop is jack jack deuce with the deuce of clubs. So villain checks, and now we're at decision point number 1 in this 4-bet pot. There's 365 in the pot. Post flop decision point number 1, I should say. 365 in the pot. You've got 820 behind. So yeah, give it to me.
I think there are a lot of different ways, or maybe not a lot, but at least a couple different ways to go. I could go here. I think just standard strategy that I would have versus most regs would just be to start out with a small range C bet, with my full 4-bet range. Um, Given that we know that this player is a fish, I think I decided to kind of adjust my post flop strategy for that. And by that, I think what kind of the hands that I thought that I wouldn't be able to target versus a fish that I might be able to target versus a reg, or maybe some hand like two overs type hands, like king queen with a backdoor, like might just start folding here from a fish's perspective, or like 5-6 of clubs or something like that. And so I was a little worried that versus a fish that might not have a the same type of like continuing range that a reg has here, I'd just be isolating myself to versus like their ace deuces at worst, and then all the pocket pairs that they have, pocket threes through maybe queens, makes sense for them. And so I decided to go the other option of the other way and just check back ace king, use it as a bluff catcher, hopefully be able to pick off, maybe if they do have ace deuce, maybe pick off bluffs from like hands like ace three through ace five suited, ace queen that decides to bluff. Maybe they do have some king queen that doesn't call a flop c bet, but starts bluffing on turns and rivers once they see me check back.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable. I think checking back is reasonable, especially when as it relates to kind of the range that I suspect villain might have here, where they have the like maybe offsuit broadways, king queen off, ace queen off, and then some pocket pairs as well as like suited broadways. I don't think the pocket pairs are ever folding. King queen off is probably going to fold to a quarter. You could kind of structure your sizing scheme to be a little smaller and go like 15% instead of 25%, just to make sure that they have those kind of pair draws in their range. That would be the alternative path, and I wouldn't hate that path. And I don't hate checking either. But I do agree with you that the standard sizing scheme, the standard path in this exact situation just feels a little off to me.
Yeah. So I check back, turn something good, 7 of clubs.
Yeah, that's a good turn. Now you got
definitely call a bet now.
Yeah, you can at least call one bet for sure. Let's just hope they don't bet pot or something gigantic. That would be the saddest part. They check. So, I mean, now that you're on this path, I don't really see much else you can do other than check behind with ace king high here. Again, kind of same thought as on the flop. I don't know what betting the turn accomplishes other than folding out hands that you're already beating and getting called by the pocket pairs that you're not beating. So not really any other direction to go here, in my opinion, other than just checking behind.
That's what I do.
And you make a flush. Kind of a bittersweet flush, right? It's like, well, you make a flush, but versus double check, and if villain checks again, you're like, oh God, I didn't need the flush. This is just like way too much.
Villain checks the river. I throw my hands up in there and say, now what size do I go?
Yeah, right. Maybe they don't check though. Maybe now they bet pot, right? Like on the turn.
He helps me out. Come on.
Very sad. If they bet pot now, very happy. The pot cometh. They bet pot. Very, very, very happy day, and just hoping for who knows, king, queen 10 of clubs, maybe. I don't know. But you obviously stick it in. There's no other alternative there. Villain bet 362 into what says is 365, but I suspect that $3 was taken out due to rake. You jam. They call, which is quite nice, unless they have quads. And they don't have quads. They just have ace jack, so they flop trips. And
almost trapped me.
That's how the cookie crumbles. And I think like it's really just kind of important here before we go to the break and move on to the next hand that you check both the flop and the turn, and things could have ended disastrously had you chosen any path other than checking twice. Almost certainly you would have gotten check raised and not gotten a chance to realize your equity and kind of realize this just incredible run out. And so, just like very, very well played hand. And for the listener out there, I think it is very easy here to like place a bet either on the flop or the turn, get check raised and under realize your equity and just not stack villain in this spot where, if you just check back, you could have got it done.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's really, it hits harder when you like kind of see the situation where you actually get to stack someone. Like I think, in my mind, if you describe the situation, I'd be, how high frequency is it that like, I actually like cooler this guy with some sort of special run out by the river. But despite the fact that it is admittedly low frequency, it's just worth so much money, so many big blinds when it does happen that like it's still worth kind of going for and thinking about making sure that you're not kind of denying yourself of realizing this equity by stabbing the flop or the turn.
Yeah, I agree completely. And, even if it's, sub 10% chance of getting the miracle run out over the course of a million hands in your career, those stacks start adding up. Those stacks start being contributors to win rate and make a difference in your BBs per 100. And that's why it's so important to get the small details right so that you can just take advantage of these opportunities when they kind of just, fall into your lap like this one did.
Yep.
So that'll do it for this first hand. Gonna head to the break. Stick around. More Tactical Tuesday coming at you.
The CPG Wolves.
I'm more organized, I'm more productive, I eat better, I sleep better, I exercise consistently because I just live a more structured life due to this program.
Having this much poker brain power in one place is a recipe for great things.
My favorite aspect of being a wolf is the sense of community, having that network to bounce ideas off and learn from each other.
Poker is a brutal game. So yeah, if you're committed to poker, joining CPG Wolves will be the best decision that you can make.
The data doesn't lie. We know things that other people don't know. I like it that way. I hate that you're advertising. I hope nobody else ever joins. So yeah, I like it.
Go to wolftryouts.com to apply. The decision to enter a hand is fundamental to poker strategy. Too tight, and they know what you have. Too loose, and you're easy to run over. PREFLOP Bootcamp from Chasing Poker Greatness is a comprehensive guide to locking down your pre-flop game and creating true range advantage. 8 days of guided training, over 60 optimal ranges, and access to a dedicated community of players that will push your pre-flop game from a place of weakness to your greatest strength. Go to chasingpokergreatness.com/bootcamp. Available now.
All right. Welcome back from the break to this early position 4-bet pot themed episode. Looks like John's going to get a little friskier in this one than the last one where he had ace king of clubs. This one he's got an ace of diamonds, 4 diamonds. So not one of the premium hands that you see in 4-bet pots, or well, yeah, not a premium hand in a 4-bet pot anyway. It's on the lower end of the equity spectrum. So starting the action, John opens to 2.5 bigs from the hijack. The button 3 bets. The blinds fold. John 4 bets. So, your 4-bet size here is to 24 big blinds. That's a little on the big side, honestly.
Yeah, this is probably like the largest like 4-bet size that I would go from out of position. And I think this is if we go back to last week's episode, this is sort of the mistake that I was alluding to that I see a lot in the blind versus blind, where like I see this size show up from the small blind, where last week if you watch the episode, you can hear us talk about like why we think the small blind 4-bet size should be significantly smaller than this. I don't know, close to 3x from out of position though has been my 4-bet size from anywhere else other than blind versus blind.
All right. So 24 bigs, villain calls, and the game is afoot. Flop is 10-4 tray. Pretty, all things considered, pretty good flop for you. 10-4 tray with a tray of diamonds. So second pair with the backdoor flush draw. There's 495 in the pot. You've got 844 behind. I think, again, this is a situation where you could go a number of different ways. Probably, since it's against a reg, you're going to start with a quarter. That would be my suspicion, but wouldn't hate checking as well.
Yeah, actually, so I'm glad that you brought that up, because I actually did check here, and I think it's a little. This hand was played a little while ago, so I can't exactly remember what my thought process was and my logic for checking here. If I kind of looked at myself and looked at myself play 4-bet pots and pulled up this hand, I think I would, like you said, I would be very surprised to see myself do anything other than bet quarter pot. If I try to think about like how my 4-bet range interacts with this board texture, though, like kind of one of the things that I'm seeing is that like the hands that I'm kind of sort of excited about c-betting or value betting in this spot are probably hands like aces, kings, queens, maybe jacks, maybe a hand like king 10 suited. That's about, one like 27-ish combos. If I think about like the other parts of my 4-bet range, the 16 combos of ace king, the 12 combos of ace queen offsuit, and then sort of like ace 4 suited, ace 5 suited, king jack suited, maybe those types of hands, maybe some ace jack suited, like more than half of my range just doesn't interact like with this.
That's true.
Yeah.
Let's not get crazy though. I think you would be excited to bet ace 5 suited. I think that's one that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sorry.
But the ace king off, definitely not very excited to bet ace king off or ace queen off. But ace 5 suited with a gut shot wheel, most likely going to have a backdoor flush draw. I feel like you'd be
sure.
You'd be
maybe it went a little too far with ace 5.
Yeah. Just dial it back some. Right.
Yeah. So, anyways, if I had to guess, if I had to sort of guess as to like what my thought process was here, I think that's probably what I was thinking.
And the SPR,
so I start out with check.
Yeah, the SPR is such in 4-bet pots too, where like, you've got 85 big blinds behind, 850, there's 500 in the pot. You can get it in with 2 bets regardless of, what hand you have. So, it can be difficult for villain to discern kind of your intentions, whether you bet or check the flop, because aces can check the flop too. And I think you should be excited to check aces on the flop, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's a hand, like you mentioned that you'd be excited to bet, but you could also be excited to check it on the same token for different reasons, right? Because, now I have like natural traps in my checking range and I can still get the money in downstream. So yeah, like I think you could do some trapping here by checking out of positions. Well, I mean, you kind of have to, right? You can't just check only your ace kings and your ace queens. But yeah. So you check, and villain bets. What is this? 15%?
Yep.
The 15%er. Kind of an annoying size to face for you, honestly, because it just makes me feel like you're in it's a very tricky size to face, because villains can do this and realize just massive amounts of equity by placing this very, very, very small bet in a spot where their expectation is not to get check raised at a high frequency.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I really like the size. I think this puts my entire 4-bet range in a bind. I mean, obviously, like my overpairs and stuff like that are very happy to continue, but even my like unimproved 2 overs, right? Those types of hands are like, oh man, can I really fold like king jack, no backdoor here, or am I just getting like too good of a price? And I think like any size that starts putting that thought into my head, I think is a good size.
I would actually say that your overpairs probably don't love facing the size either, because then you have like a weird conundrum where, okay, so like you can check like ace king, ace queen, but those hands just don't check raise at much high of a clip. So like, what hand do you have that, like what low equity hand do you have that check raises the flop? So like villain gets to play like really well again versus check raises, because like ace king doesn't really have much incentive, and ace queen doesn't have much incentive to check raise. A hand that you said like, you would happily check, king jack suited. I think that's another hand that like, due to its 3 straight and likely backdoor flush draw, that's a hand that like you could very easily bet. And like king jack suited, king queen suited, those would be the hands that like benefit most from check raising, where okay, like they don't really have a ton of showdown value, but like you can chunk them into your check raise range. Yeah, I think this size actually puts a lot of annoying pressure on your overpairs to construct a strategy accordingly. Which, the strat would probably just be to call the flop, and if hope the turn checks through, and hope they don't bet like 10 or 15% again on the turn, because that would be quite annoying to face, because then you have another conundrum of like, oh, I want to play for all the money with my overpairs, but like they could just go like bet check with pocket pairs like 9s through 7s or 10x. So yeah, like villain has options here after placing this 15% size bet that makes it really annoying for you to continue. And yeah, kudos to villain for finding this size. I think this is a really great size for this situation.
Yeah. And I think my response with my overpairs would be to just not have a raising range here. I think I would really, really struggle to construct a raising strategy here. I mean, like even those like king queens and king jacks, like you said, like one of the things that I have to say to myself before check raising king queen of spades or king queen of clubs is like, I'm just going to forego this incredible price that I'm getting on the flop to realize my equity and like risk putting that up in the air and risk getting jammed on. And yeah, that's a pretty tough thing to do when you could just call 15% pot and realize your equity for extremely cheap. So yeah, I think there's a lot of good things going on with this size.
Nice. So you call the 73. There's 642 in the pot. So SPR is now around 1. Turn is the 8 of clubs, which doesn't really change all that much unless it gives villain a set of 8s. You check, and villain once again chooses a very small size, about 20% here. So villain is in lockstep with the thing that you don't want to face, which is sucky.
Although with my exact hand, I'm okay. I'm kind of okay.
Sure.
With it. Yeah.
With your exact hand, you're okay. With your range, your range is like in a really annoying spot, which is ultimately the thing that matters over the long run. But in this exact and in this exact situation in the multiverse, you're feeling okay with your hand. And again, you don't really have much of a choice other than to call.
Oh.
Wow, look at man, good thing that you're on the right timeline in the multiverse. The river is the 4 of hearts. So congratulations. Now you effectively have aces. So now you're in the spot, the annoying spot, that aces would have found itself in had you had aces. So I guess, yeah, like let's talk about this situation. Villain going small. Could very well be betting hands with the intention of checking behind. Could very well be setting up kind of a three street game with maybe like some kind of queen jack or some sort of like backdoor clubs, potentially, or just total airball, kind of targeting, like trying to keep like ace king ace queen in there so they can fold out ace king ace queen up by the river, which honestly would probably be your most likely hand. And then their value region, because ace king and ace queen is your most likely hand, is probably going to be something like king 10 plus, king 10, ace 10 plus. So jacks, I think value jams. Queens, I think value jams if they don't jam queens pre, and king 10 if they have king 10 in their pre-flop range. But ace 10 suited, just most likely going to be a slam dunk jam, I think.
Yeah, I agree. They're also going to have aces. I think that's like another hand that I wouldn't be surprised to see.
And the region that I think like goes bet check is quite small at this point too, compared to the other region where they have like 9s and potentially 7s maybe, or 8-9 suited perhaps, where they like turn an 8 and try to check it behind. So I think that like the path here, the plan is just to check the river and hope that they either have a hand they're value betting that's not a boat, or that they have a bluff and stick it in.
Yep. Hope you have a really good hand or a really bad hand.
Yeah, but not too good. Not too
good. yeah. Not the nuts good, but almost the nuts.
So villain does jam, and going to be a pretty trivial call here with your trips. But would have liked to seen what happens if the river's just a deuce ball or something like that. I think that would have been a much more difficult spot. As it is, you ginned it. Villain has the king jack of diamonds, so they did have the overcard portion of the range where they had a 3 straight with a backdoor flush draw, and just tried their darndest to target ace, king, ace, queen, and didn't work out for him here because somehow magically you ended up with trips on the river.
Yeah, would be an interesting spot to think about, maybe using like an equity calculator to see like how I should play on like a deuce river. Is a 4 going to be good enough to bluff catch versus a range that, if this guy shows up with king jack of diamonds, I'd imagine that calling with just a pair of 4s on the river is relatively trivial if he has king jack of diamonds, king queen, queen jack, all of those.
Yeah, maybe. If they have all of them, but we'll never know. We didn't find that timeline in the multiverse, so that's have to be listening and watching Tactical Tuesday in one of those other alternate realities in order to see what would have happened had you not made.
I for one can say that I am glad that I was on this timeline and not the Deuce of Hearts timeline.
This was the easy mode. This was the easy mode timeline. Don't worry. I'm sure you'll find yourself in the difficult timelines just as often as you find yourself in the easy versions. So
for sure.
Good stuff this week. Great theme the last couple of weeks. Loose formations, 4-bet pots, and then tighter formation, 4-bet pots. Can't wait to see what you cook up next week. And that's all I got for you.
Well, see you next week.
See you next week. Peace.
Thanks for listening to Chasing Poker Greatness. You can subscribe on Apple Podcasts or on your favorite podcast app. Go to chasingpokergreatness.com to get the newsletter. Join the Greatness Village community, book a coaching session, or dive into the latest data-driven poker courses. Follow the show on Twitter at CPG Podcast. The CPG Wolves.
The people in Wolves are highly intelligent and they're successful. And they're not just successful in poker, they're successful in other realms of life.
The coaching in general is very eye-opening. It doesn't take long for your biases and preconceived notions of how poker is played to be out in the open and under the reality of data.
Most of us share the same values and goals, so the support and drive to help each other succeed has just been invaluable.
The resources are just endless. I really feel that commitment every single day.
I couldn't even beat 50 NL online, and now I'm playing 500 NL.
Coach John is just an absolute machine. Coach Brad is pretty much the only person that I would blindly trust to guide me through my poker career.
The grass is greener on this side of the fence, and I think you just have a good time too.
Go to wolftryouts.com to apply. In a world where a fish dog bets the flop, and you don't know what to do, one man,
Coach Brad Wilson,
has a surefire plan to neutralize flop leads and rip that dunk to shreds. NUFFLE. Available now. Go to chasingpokergreatness.com/NUFFLE. Rated R. 100 NL player, former Sergeant Elijah Shears.
Before I got NUFFLE, I had run into a lot of donk bets, and I think once you play a certain amount of hands, you know there's something wrong with our opponent's strategies, but you don't know how to play to maximize EV against it, and it's very frustrating. I looked at the document and I couldn't believe that I paid money for it. I actually doubted that it could provide value because it was so brief. But since then, it's repaid me just over and over and over again. And it's one of the most consistent moneymakers built into my strategy that sheds light on just how bad your opponents are. And it took me 20 minutes to perfect it, and it's just amazing. Yeah, I'm speechless. It's just that good. The simplicity of it is part of it being a masterpiece.
NUFFLE. Go to chasingpokergreatness.com/courses.